log, stardate 7403.6.
Are you pretending to do a captain's log?
I saw that, but I don't believe it.
A Vendorian doctor.
Shapeshifter? Look, I can set you up with somebody great on the Cerritos. There's that Philosian and Tactical. She seems like a nice plant person.
Intelligent plants?
Orion's little game of neutrality and piracy is over.
For your information, mini Orions haven't been pirates for over 5 years!
Time to take this puppy off its leash! Warp me!
Welcome to Drawn to Trek. I have a special guest with me today from another Trek podcast that we do together. No, this is not working. Never mind. I'm just going to introduce you. There was a joke in there somewhere, and it just died on my tongue. So, welcome, Brandi, Becky Mariner, Jackola.
I laughed so hard at Becky Mariner. I have an older sister named Becky, and so not Rebecca, Becky, and so it just struck me as super funny.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I heard that. It was just, and I love Boimler's reaction to that as well. Becky. She's so not a Becky on like at any level. It feels like. Well,
see, every time I hear Becky, I either think of my sister or I think of, oh my God, Becky, look at her butt. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Well, yeah, I guess we should say what we're reviewing. It's like if you've been following Drawn to Trek, and if you're from the future and you're just going back through these, you're going to be like, I don't really care about any of this. But we've had a series of illnesses and absences, and everything has just sort of happened all within like 3 or 4 episodes. So I went to record An Embarrassment of Dooplers, which is the episode we're talking about. And I felt like at one point I was just going to have to go out in the street and ask somebody to come and record because everybody's been sick or busy, or poor Bill has had like oral surgery and it's been weeks now and he still doesn't feel like talking. So, yikes. Yeah. So I was just like, wait, why am I overthinking this? Like, I've got to get Brandi. Yeah. Because we haven't talked about it, like Lower Deck since last year either.
No,
so
we haven't.
This is fun.
I'm glad I'm better than a person just off the street. At least there's that.
That might have been a little bit of an extremely exaggeration.
No,
yes.
I know. I tease because I care.
I do. I have thrown in like comments randomly on the Unready Room, so it's kind of like we've talked, but it's more like I've just shouted into the void at you from the chat room.
It is hard to watch the chat and do the show at the same time. You can really just go down a rabbit hole and not even be paying attention to what the co-host is saying, and just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Who? Me?
Yeah.
So
when it's audio only, there is something that is helpful about that because you don't have to be paying attention to the screen or like projecting as if you're actually looking out into the audience, like because right now we're recording visually but we don't have to pay attention or anything. So all right, should we dive in? I'm thinking that maybe we'll break it out into the 3 different kind of main stories. We've got the bridge crew doing their thing, Tendi and Rutherford doing their thing, and Mariner and Boimler, and they all kind of meet up at the end.
Yep, it all comes together.
Yeah. Which is what they do a lot, which is cool. It's like this I think is a really good example of interweaving the 3 plots together.
Agreed.
Where the episode after this, because we've seen this into the future because this is recorded in the past. It's very confusing temporally. That one didn't mesh quite as well for some reason. It felt like everything was sort of like siloed, and they didn't really kind of combine at all. All right, so do we want to start with, where do you want to start? Bridge crew, Tendi, or Mariner Boimler?
I think we should start with the bridge crew, and it is interesting to note that this episode had no cold open.
Yes, just went straight into the intro and then the show.
Yep. So yeah, let's.
That's happened a couple of times last year, I think.
It did.
Once or twice.
So I think since we start the episode with the bridge crew, let's just start with the bridge crew.
Yeah, okay. So we're headed off to Starbase 25, which, by the way, is the Starbase that Sulu, Spock, and Uhura were headed to in the animated series episode, The Slaver Weapon. So we've never seen the space station, but we've heard about it once.
I actually recently watched that episode as well of TAS.
Really?
Yes, it was actually on Star Trek Day that I watched that. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, you did more on Star Trek Day for animated series than Star Trek did for the animated series.
Yeah.
There was literally nothing. I mean, we've had this conversation on other episodes, but it's just like, it still like kind of bugs me that like, could it at least have been, just a screenshot of yesteryear somewhere in there because that's the most popular episode? I don't know.
Right. And I knew that was going to happen, probably as well as you did. And so that's what my day up to that point was binging TAS. That's what I did.
Oh, nice.
All day until the event started.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was where they were headed. So if we had followed them back, we would have seen the station. Well, we wouldn't have, but in theory, if we were in their universe, we would have.
Yeah, like they're going to draw a space station in that series. Right? No.
If they it would have been a trace of K7 or something like that. It would have looked like that.
Yeah.
Which I could actually see that growing into the larger Starbase. I could see them adding on to that.
That's fair.
But yeah, so they're headed off there. They have Doopler duty, which is basically these creatures that duplicate when they get emotionally distressed. So basically think tribbles, but with people.
It's just such an odd trait for a race.
Yeah. It feels like I guess that could be really good if you were like being chased or something. If you could just keep duplicating.
Yes.
I could see that as being, other than that, I don't know what biologically how that would be helpful.
And yeah, the thing that's probably how it evolved is that kind of response to a threat. But at the same time, I wonder what happens if some of the Dooplers get killed.
Yeah, because there's a conservation of mass, what?
These are questions that I have, things that I think about that no one else does.
What keeps us up at night?
Yeah,
why were Dooplers duplicating?
I mean, like if
I love the voice, Richard Kind.
Richard, I love him.
Yes. And because every time I hear it, though, I think of Fran and Mark from Mad About You, which I'm sure this is a reference that nobody's going to get. But Mad About You was a show on NBC in the 80s. It was a sitcom with Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt.
Yep.
I remembered names today. I'm excited.
So proud. I'm so proud.
Thank you. And they had their best friends were Fran and Mark, at least in the early seasons. And Mark was played by Richard Kind. Yeah. And he just did those. His voice sounds exactly the same. It's just to me, it's very weird. It's like he's just doing his own voice, basically.
Yeah, he is.
A little bit more.
And that's fine because I was just, the minute I heard it, I'm like, oh, I know that guy. And I couldn't think of his name for some reason. So I'm thinking of all the things that he's done. And for whatever reason, the one that got me was, oh yeah, he was in A Bug's Life. He was that. Oh yeah. Richard Kind. Why was that the thing that made me remember his name?
It's animated. Hey.
That is true. So, but yeah.
There's your connection.
So
he's there. He's emotionally fragile, basically. They're on pins and needles, like trying to make sure that they don't do anything wrong. He drops a fork and starts to freak out. And of course, then Ransom takes his and just throws it behind him. So they basically just barely make it through this meal. And they're headed to the Starbase. And he's like, I'm going to excuse myself to prepare for the station. And then they all just sort of collapse after he leaves because it's so stressful.
Yeah, I can see why. Because when you have to walk on eggshells around somebody for that long... Yeah. Because you have to think, I mean, how long was the journey here? When did they pick him up? He could have been on the ship for days.
Yeah. Or weeks, even.
Yep.
And, And so they're excited about not only just getting rid of him, but they are headed to Starbase 25, where there's this big command conference. And it's kind of cool that we're getting more of the mini arc of Captain Freeman kind of leveling up her career. So she was involved in the Pakled battle, and so now she's like, hey, I'll be the only California-class captain there because I was at the Battle of the Pakleds, and she's assuming that she's on this list and will be allowed in. So they
Never assume. Never
No.
assume.
So they're headed to the station. They get there and they call the station commander, and they're just like, she just starts talking about how exhausting it has been and how emotionally fragile this guy is. And in the background, you hear the turbolift door open, and as she's going on, and then Jack is kind of like pointing and just kind of just like waving, and he's there listening. He's like, "Oh no, was I into trouble?" And then he just starts duplicating. And then of course the commander's like, "I'm not gonna let you on the station with that problem." It's like, you got to take care of that first before you can come aboard.
Yeah,
So-
that was an interesting thing for me, because not because of the duplicating, but because there was an obvious, Starfleet person in charge there, and yet it doesn't seem like it's a Starfleet base, because if it is a Starfleet base, why are the cops corrupt? And so there are just so many things that I'm like, what is going on here?
If it's been there for that long, it's possible that it's sort of developed its own kind of internal social structure. I can't imagine, like, as much as we have grown to know, like, Starfleet as this super squeaky clean, well, except for when you have Admirals. I mean, I think there's more of this sort of stuff than we know, because we just never investigated it. I mean, the show's been around now for 50 plus years. You can start to look at those sort of things where when you have a set number of shows, and in a different time period, obviously, when like TNG was around, it just wouldn't be something that you would investigate. But it kind of feels like to me the cops on, or the sheriff or whatever on Outland, a little bit, they were the kind of corrupt, and they were like trying to keep the miners going, and so they were doing, like, allowing drug trafficking of the drug that kind of like keeps you all pumped up. And so I could see some, not to that level obviously, but I could see them just sort of being like, they get paid off in whatever pay is, I still think that there's money more than they really let on.
Well, they, probably Earth doesn't have money, and maybe the other founding members of the Federation don't really deal in money with each other, but that doesn't mean that there's no money in the universe. I mean, that's a ridiculous assumption.
Clearly not. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, and
people use a lot of Latinum, it seems like. It seems like
So much
Ferengi
Latin.
currency has sort of become the de facto.
Well, I mean, considering how far-reaching the Ferengi influence is on economics, it's not really surprising.
Yeah.
We could get into an economic discussion here, but we're not going to. It just occurred to me, though, thinking about Deep Space Nine, because Odo was not Starfleet, nor were a lot of his people. So
Correct.
there we go.
There you go.
I've solved my own question.
There you go. Well, but that's the cool thing is that, like, you can get that level of, like, granular sort of information that gives more texture to the universe than just like, it's a Starfleet base.
Yeah.
And everybody's from Starfleet and they're all up and up. It just gives just some depth to everybody, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny when you think about how this cartoon can have more depth than like a live action series that went for 8 years or whatever. Like, these characters are evolving much faster than anybody on TNG ever did.
So true. So true. And I still hear people saying, oh, well, there isn't any character development. I'm like, okay, you're not actually watching the show then.
No.
Because there is character development for every single person on this show.
All they're seeing is the jokes or something.
Yeah, people see what they want to see a lot of the time.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
So,
I agree.
Yeah.
So they end up having to use 10 forward, the bar, which actually is now called the bar because of when we talk about Tendi and Rutherford, nobody's given it a name beyond that. They have to use that for Doopler
Doopler duty.
holding. So the one time where you see Tendi and Rutherford sort of blend into this plot line is that they're carrying out a model, which we will get to, and it's like, are you leaving because of me? I mean, yeah, it's pretty clear. Just like, leave. I thought that was great. It's like, yes, duh.
Yes. Obviously, they missed the announcement from the captain.
Yeah. Well, and that, yeah, to be... oh, Oh yeah, no. I forgot. The captain announces like they're duplicating and it's just fine. Everything's cool. Just basically just be really nice to them, and that's what's in the long run actually causes part of the problem. And so at some point they're just like, let's just all be quiet. She's giving us the silent treatment. And then blip, 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 they start duplicating. What I love is that they have like a kind of a purple yellow or purple pink flash.
Yep.
And if you see the ship from the outside, you just see like the lights in the windows are like flash, 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 flash. So yeah. So this is just, it's going and going and going, and like the other plot lines are moving forward, but basically they figure out the way to get him to recombine is just because Captain Freeman just loses it and just yells at them. And when she does, they come back together, or two of them did. And so she's just like, all right, I understand that we're Starfleet. And it's like, but just give the Dooplers a piece of your mind. And I think my favorite has got to be Shaxx. It's like, your paw is weakened. It disgusts me. He's like, I don't even know what that means, but I'm offended.
But I don't like your tone.
Yeah, I don't like your tone, yeah. And of course, Tiana, like, Dr. Tiana says, all bleeps, basically. So we have no idea what she was saying.
Yes, we can imagine.
Like, you, lady, have crossed the line. So there's basically you got to see all the main sections, like engineering. Everybody had their thing, which was great. So
yeah, I did really like one scene when it was getting out of control right before Freeman loses her temperature, loses her temper. Wow, leave that in. It's hilarious. And
she would, yeah.
And basically the Dooplers, like Shaxx is crowd surfing on the Dooplers, not by design. And he's like, right. I'm sorry, Captain, the crowd has me now.
That was great. There was just so many just fun little moments in that. And I love that they're trying to walk on eggshells, and it just makes it worse and worse. So
there's nothing to be ashamed about. Oh, thank you. Yeah. That's very kind. Wait a minute. That's something someone says when they mean the opposite.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You can overthink everything. And you can always find that. And so there's some deep story there somewhere, but it is interesting how basically just telling them the truth is what kind of just like, oh, okay, I kind of needed that. Thanks.
Yeah.
So basically they've now solved the Doopler problem, so they can go to their big command party. So they get there, and she starts to walk in, and they're like, whoa, wait. Oh, by the way, the bouncer is the same species as EM3 Green from the TAS episode Jihad, which is basically these giant pill bugs, which is interesting as a bouncer because they're terrified of everything. They're very much like non-confrontational, and will just like, so something's happened in that time period that either that or this specific one is just, very good at standing up for himself and not being worried. So, because I think there are some people trying to get into parties like bouncers have to deal with. They're probably more terrifying than what they faced on that planet. Honestly.
Yeah, that's probably the case. Well, and the thing is that like in New Zealand, their bouncers are really big, but they've all got that really polite accent. Hey, man.
Yeah.
Maybe you could stop doing that, or I'm going to have to throw you out.
That's fine.
Can't do New Zealand accent to save my life, but yeah. It's just these giant guys with a hey, man.
Well, and so she's like, it's okay. They're with me. It's like, well, who are you? So it's like, I'm Captain Carol Freeman from the USS Cerritos. I fought alongside Riker in the Battle of whatever that was called with the Packlids. It's like, yeah, you're not on the list. And so she's like, sees somebody up there. It's like, hey, Captain. Was it John something? Or I think it was the person who was on the screen.
Probably.
Anyway, but it's like, oh, Okana. It's like, Okana's in there? He's not even Starfleet. This is outrageous. So we have our Easter egg of Okana, who is the DJ, which we later see. And I love that he's carrying around what looks like a boombox, but it's the same
piece of
equipment from his ship.
His guidance system, so that no one can take his ship. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that was
So,
hilarious.
That was like, I love that Easter egg.
But,
I just love
but why?
how they put that.
How did he lose an eye? I want to know.
I don't know. I asked that, and basically the response I got from the people on Twitter who are involved in the show is like, yeah, that's a mystery. I'm like, what?
Well, there was a part of
Okay.
me that thought, well, he's just adopted the eye patch to keep it fresh and keep the mystery going.
Well, I'm trying to remember if something happened in the novels because I think maybe they did, because there was an episode. There was a novel where he is actually kind of like he works for Starfleet as a spy kind of person, and he's working with Naomi Wildman. So there's this really interesting, so I think like there's something in the deep corner of my mind that something happened related to that. So I would have to go back, but yeah. And I looked online, I didn't see anything, so.
Interesting.
But yeah, so that would be interesting. So basically Captain Freeman's like gives this big speech that it's like, we might not be the best ship. It's like, but we do the jobs that nobody wants. It's like, and we are getting into that party. And then it cuts to them sitting out on the stairs in front of a dive bar. And Jack is like, well, I liked your speech, Captain.
Yeah.
So, they did not get in. And we'll come back to that once we get the other stories, because that's where these start to reconnect.
Yeah, the one thing that bothers me is that there was like a class system to get into this party, which bothers me.
Yeah.
Because command is command, no matter what type of ship you're on. And if it's a command conference and this is the after party, how come it's only this ship or better? And how do they determine which ship is better? That just bugged me. But I can actually see that really being the case in Starfleet for something, and I don't think that that's cool.
It'd be funny. She's like, I am the main character on my own show.
Yeah.
So that's where we end up with that story, and we're going to come back to that. Should we do Tendi and Rutherford next, and then end with?
Yes.
Okay. So Tendi and Rutherford, this plot line I enjoyed quite a bit,
Me too.
Especially because having been through like a heart surgery and kind of like catching back up with your own life, I get some of how Rutherford's feeling. So it's like, oh yeah, I've experienced that, where you feel like you're competing with yourself, So, but basically, we join them in the bar, and they're working on a teeny tiny model of the Cerritos, and I love that they have like the little plastic pieces that come off of the framework, like real models do.
Yep.
Stuff. So, and Tenny's just like, after a hard day of working on the ship, nothing relaxes me like building a smaller version of the ship. It's like, it's great.
Well, and I loved this shot, how it was introduced, because you just have this tight focus on the Cerritos from the back.
It looks like it's an outside, yeah.
Yeah, and you think, oh, and Dave, my husband, he was looking at it, was like, okay, they're holding this a little too long. Oh, I see.
Well, yeah, and it's weird because they did a really good job of making it like not have the same depth as when they would shoot it otherwise. Cause I'm like, it feels small, and then you're like, oh, it is small because it's a model. It's very weird. And he peels on with the tweezers, the little water soluble, like the stickers that you would put onto the ship with the name of the Cerritos. That was great.
So great.
And what I really liked is sort of, I think this is kind of like maybe it was unintentional, but I feel like it's an intentional Easter egg when Tendi is looking at all the details, and she goes, I like the mini Mariner bossing tiny Boimler around in the itty bitty bar. And you see like through the window, like these little kind of cut out versions of them. It looks very similar to TNG if you watch the opening in the 10 forward, in the observation lounge in the back. They have like little people just kind of sort of walking by. It's essentially these little kind of tiny versions of the crew. So
yeah, well, they have kind of a similar thing in the motion picture when there's the 5-minute ship porn that most everybody hates, but I personally love, because I found the man that looks at me like Kirk looks at the Enterprise during that sequence. Aww. And so, but the thing is, I got it on 4K. Yes, I own them on Blu-ray.
Oh, but I need to get that.
I got them on 4K, and for the first time, I saw somebody in one of the windows as that shuttle is backing in and docking.
You know who that is?
No, I don't know who it is.
I think it's Denise Okuda because she worked on it. Yeah.
That would make sense. But yeah, I was just looking at it and just going. And for the first time ever, when Scotty's doing the wide turnaround and coming back, and you're seeing the Enterprise head on, and then down in the right-hand corner of the screen, you see the Starbase from whence they came, and I had never noticed that before. I had watched this movie 100 times since I was a child. So, yeah, just fun.
I want to go back.
I love fun little things like that. And I
can't wait for the 4K director's version that's going to come out.
I know. I saw the director's version. The first time that I saw the motion picture, it was the director's cut. And
it's better. It's just fuzzier.
I'm a child, and I was a child. You know, I was probably like, when did that come out? I don't even know. But I was definitely...
2002?
Oh, okay, so that one. But I swear there was a director's cut that they put on television.
Oh, the TV version. Yeah, like 83 or
so
something
I was
that.
I was like 10 years old. So and that was the first time I actually saw that version of the movie, but I'd seen the movie before. And even as a child, I'm like, I love this. This is Star Trek. Of course I love this. I was never bored.
I wanted to go to San Francisco to look at the Star Trek bridge, is what I told my parents when I was like 9. So we actually did go to like take pictures. I got pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge because it was from Star Trek, which is hilarious.
I walked across the Golden Gate Bridge when I was in San Francisco the first time. Walked all the way across.
That is amazingly windy and cold when you get to the middle of it. You're just like, wait, how is it what is going on?
And for someone who is afraid of heights, it is even more interesting.
Yes, it is terrifying. Yes.
Honestly, I was okay as long as I just looked out. If I didn't look up, if I didn't look down, I was fine. But
I was fine walking on it. Driving across it scares the hell out of me.
I did both. I mean, I was with a group of people. It was actually a school trip, so I did both.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, sorry, I diverted.
No. When you said school trip, I just immediately thought of Superman the motion picture with the bus going over the Golden Gate Bridge almost.
Yeah, that occurred to me as well. And so did that. You know, honestly, there's a scene in Godzilla, the most recent Godzilla, not King of the Monsters, etc. Just the first Godzilla, that wasn't the terrible one with Matthew Broderick. And there's a situation with Godzilla's coming into the bay, and the Golden Gate Bridge is just there, and they're trying to evacuate kids, and there's all these school buses, and they have one really persistent scared driver driving their bus that gets them to the other side before Godzilla is just like, come on, because he's trying to he's there to help, okay? He's there to take care of the Mutos, and they are firing on him. They got all these tanks on the bridge, they got ships in the water, and he's just like, are you kidding me right now with this? Fine, and just charges through the bridge.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, yeah, poor Godzilla. He's just like, come on, people. I'm not here for you.
Now I am.
It's just so funny. Because he's making these sounds and these gestures just like, stop it. I've got somewhere to go. You are delaying me. I gotta go take care of this.
I haven't seen the most recent one, so I haven't seen any of them really recently. So
they aren't the worst thing ever. I actually really enjoyed Godzilla, and I really enjoyed Kong Skull Island, and I kind of enjoyed King of All Monsters. The reasons why people were doing things bothered me in that one, but yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
No, this is our thing. We go
Tangents.
way around the plot and then come back to the beginning.
Yeah, it's my fault because I started thinking
good.
about things of when I was a child and things that you noticed that in Windows. That got me. Woo! And we circled back around from Godzilla, and here we are.
Well, it all did stay within the Golden Gate Bridge, so at least it's kind of related.
This is true.
But so basically, they're putting together this thing and. The model, and Rutherford used his bionic eye essentially and zooms in on a piece of the the model, and it has like kind of a cryptic information, and he's like, what is this? It's like, oh, it must have been a note you left for yourself. And so, but it's not helping. It's like, it says something 88 and then 3 squiggly lines. And so he tries to do something and accidentally sends off the phaser with a little tiny ship and shoots. It's like, sorry. It goes across the room.
Some guy goes,
I love that it's
"Ow!"
all functional. Yes.
Fully functional.
It's hilarious that it's a working ship. So they basically, that's when the Dooplers come in and they're like, okay, we got to find someplace else to finish this model. And then the one is like, are you leaving because of me? Yeah, it's kind of clear. So that's when they take off. Yeah. So they're in the turbo lift, and she's just like, why don't you just stop putting it together? It's like, because nothing's working. And he's like, no, it's like, this is part of me. I'm an engineer, and if I can't put this together, like what am I anymore? And so they ended up going to where they have the cargo bay where they're putting together the Sequoia, the shuttle that never gets put back together.
Never.
Yeah, and the Dooplers move into there, and they're on top of it, and he's just basically, it's like, I feel like I'm competing with my own ghost. It's like, I've missed a year of being your friend. I've missed a year of learning. I can't figure out what the hell these notes mean even for myself. And it's really interesting. I'm glad that they actually kind of addressed that, and he didn't just like, I'm fine now, because he did get a little bit of a soft reset where they just sort of left it for a while. And you're just like, okay, I guess he's fine. I mean, they mentioned it, like the pairs thing.
Yeah, I never thought he was fine. I just thought that he was internalizing his conflict.
Which it seems like he was. But I think this is good because I feel like it got it out.
Yes.
And so now at least he's dealing with it. So they realize that they have to get out of there, and that's what brought on the whole conversation was this, like, we have to get through the maintenance hatch, and she goes, oh well, they sealed that off a year ago. Don't you remember that? It's like, no, Tendi, I don't. Just like, because he did not. Everything was taken from him. So I love that they have to get the little command keys to detonate. So they're going to detonate the warp core of the model to blow a hole into the maintenance shaft so they can get up into it. They both use tweezers and make the little tiny keys.
That's so great. I love.
And they
that
do the
so
split
much.
screen, where you see like one the keys on one side and the keys on the other. Yeah, and then like. And they kind of do that nod where they like, okay, do it. And then they turn, ejecting warp core in 5, 4. Like just a little tiny little voice. And he's like, it pops it out and he's like, ooh, hot, hot, hot. And then it throws it up against like somehow you could hold a warp core even if it was that size. I imagine that would not be good. And then it blows up the hatch. So I would feel like it would take out the cargo bay if it was actually real, but okay.
No, it was really, really tiny, and I'm sure he didn't use any. Everything was to scale,
right.
So he wasn't use a really big blast with that. But
I know, but like if it was a scale, though, it still feels like it would have taken out a much bigger area because they always show the explosion area of a warp core is pretty big. It feels like in the shows. I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, I don't know. It depends. The maintenance hatch was a bit higher up because basically Rutherford had to catapult Tendi into it. Yeah. So yeah, it was a ways away. So it's proportional.
So basically, they get out, and then we will see them again at the bar at the end. So that's the end of their plot line essentially for this.
Well, to be fair, though, there was the one thing where Tendi said those notes were probably just about you slowing down. We never finished it. We would always get to the warp core, and then we'd stop and take it apart and start over.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and it was just about, it wasn't so much completing a model. It was just having something to do that they could do together. And
that kept other people from interrupting them.
Yeah, it was with a social deflector shield.
Social deflector dish, because yes, I have many social deflector dishes.
I call them AirPods.
Yep, I used to call it reading, but that stopped working when I was a teenager, because now people just come up to me when I'm reading and start talking to me, and I'm like,
that's lovely.
Did you not see that I'm reading? I'm reading because I don't want to talk to people. So,
yeah.
Go on.
I used to go to restaurants and try and read by myself, and it didn't work very well.
Yeah, it's like there's this new unknown.
It's like, oh, it's so sad that you're reading by yourself. You must want somebody to talk to you. I'm like, no, that's not.
No.
Never mind.
Yeah, the last job I had before my current job, I had an hour lunch, and so I would sit in the break room and I would read, and I got so much reading done during work because of that. And every time, every single day, people would interrupt me. And then they would start teasing me. Yeah, there's Brandi in the corner. She's reading her book. And I said, yeah, and don't come over here because I'm busy reading. And so they keep trying to interrupt me, and I just keep ignoring them. I don't know what it is about having an open book that makes people think that you want to talk.
On airplanes, it's also the same thing. Oh, what are you reading? I think that I'm reading, so I don't have to talk to you. I'm reading this really interesting book. It's like how to get people that are really annoying not to speak to you on airplanes.
Yes.
It's a really clumsy title, but it works.
This is a book called How to Signal You Want to Be Left Alone, a guide to reading on planes.
Much better. We've workshopped the title. Great.
Yeah, we've got it. We've got it.
Could be the title of our episode. We're gonna be like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Well, the only plot line we have left now is Mariner and Boimler. Do you want to take that? Do you want to, or do you want me to just keep going through it? I can keep going.
Sorry, I was actually rewatching the episode earlier because they're stacking crates. And stacking crates and stacking crates, and Mariners talks about how she feels like that all that they do is stack crates, and she says, "What's our next duty? We're stacking crates."
Yeah, it was like, what is it? Crates and stacking crates, and there's something. I know there's two parts to it. And I can't remember what it is now, but yeah, it's like Cargo Bay 6, moving something and stacking crates.
Yeah, moving and stacking crates. Yeah, and they're talking about the Starbase and how the after party is really great, and Boomer's like, "Oh, my stupid transporter clone probably gets to go because of the Titan," and because she was saying it's too bad you're not still on the Titan, you'd get invited, and then she's like, "Oh no, we could let's use his invitation." And he's like, no.
They're on the other side of the quadrant because they're fighting the Packlet, so they're not possibly going to get back in time.
Yeah. And so he's just like, I'll just contact my clone and make sure it's okay. No!
Yeah. slaps the pad out of his hand. It's like, yes. It's like, that's crazy. It's like, yes, upon further examination, that was a crazy idea.
The funny part is that if he had done that, his clone probably would have said, oh, yeah, sure. I'm not going to make it, so go ahead.
It's like, you haven't talked to him, but he's kind of a butt kisser, and he's very uptight, and he's just basically describing himself, which is hilarious.
We always hate the qualities that we see in ourselves. We hate them in other people because, and it's sometimes we don't understand that it's because we know we have those qualities that we are seeing them outside of ourselves, and we're just like, no, don't like that, must hate this person. So they're preparing to sneak into this party, and they find out about the Doopler problem, and they're like, oh great, nobody's gonna notice this transporter override, and he's trying to talk him into scans.
Chaos on the bridge.
Yep, chaos on the
bridge,
bridge.
Which is a great little callback to the that documentary.
Yep, and he wants to take scans.
Yeah. Nobody wears scants anymore.
Yeah, and he, honestly, they should have taken scants because of what happens later. And
they needed it.
So they beam on to the base, and we see a Nausicaan. We see a Tellarite in a hood. Tellarite in a hood, very much like that scene in Star Wars. When Luke and Obi-Wan are heading for the hangar. Anyway, with the droids. So it was very much like
Remember
that.
Remember Becky Mariner? She's back.
Well, the first time I watched this episode, I thought he just said Beckett. And I also thought, Malden? Was that his name?
Malvis?
Malvis, that's it. I knew it was something like that. I also thought he said Beckett. But when Boimler says
weird.
Becky, just like, wait, what? Wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get it the first time when the Telluride said it. I got it the second time when it's like, oh, that's what he was saying.
Yeah. So they're in this shop, and
Before we get there, though,
yes.
I love that they pass by. It's like, oh, there's a Quarks. It's like that
Yeah.
just used to be an empty lot where teens made bad choices.
Yeah, I used to live here. Of course you did.
Of course you did. Sometimes it smells like pee. That's funny.
I gotta find out why.
It's an old space station that, like, it's city-sized. Basically, it's like the way when, like, if you had a Starbase, you had to have everything there. So it was, like, anything that you could need. And also there's, like, 2 old Daedalus class starships docked at the thing. They're the ones with the big globe instead of a saucer section.
Right.
And there's a couple Andorian ships, too.
Yeah, are they like heavy cruisers or something?
Something like that,
They seem like they're
Although they don't
big.
seem like they've changed since Enterprise.
I don't think
which is
they
a little
have.
weird.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and you do see a couple of Andorians, talking to each other during one of the scenes.
Yep.
So yeah,
They had, like, Slurpees, it looked like.
yeah. Well, there was that previous reference about slushies with the Mariner and Tindy
yeah.
go on a mission together. So I'm guessing
True.
there's one of those everywhere. Just a chain
Yeah.
throughout the galaxy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's unfortunately, they now have to, in order to find out where this party is going to be, they have to deliver bubble bath.
Yeah, Commander Data Bubble Bath. I love this, like, are you sure this isn't lore? Yeah, there might be a couple lores in there.
Well, to be fair, the one that he picks
They
up
did-
does have a smirk.
Yep. We actually, if you go back and listen to episode 2 or 3, when we saw the 15-second trailer that had this in there, John and I both looked at it and like, there's 2 of those that do not look like Data. They look like lore. So we thought they were action figures at the time because we didn't know. But yeah, they remind me of the Princess Leia bubble bath where you screwed off her head, basically. And
Yep, we had that when I was a kid. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm that old. Anyway,
Lather up like a princess or something like that. It was this horrible, like...
it was terrible. It was terrible.
Carrie Fisher thought it was hilarious.
It was hilarious. She was right.
Yeah.
It was absolutely hilarious. And so
But anyway.
they're in this. Basically, it looks like a Jeep / dune buggy type thing.
Yeah.
And they're driving
Around the station.
driving around the space station, which I immediately started getting Blues Brothers vibes,
Uh-huh. Yep.
which also had Carrie Fisher in it.
There
Weird.
You go. There we... yeah. Huh. You think about that.
There's like 3 things that connect to Star Wars for me in this episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they start
funny.
running their sirens, and then they
They drive through all sorts of stores, which
Yeah.
is great. You can see
every time it's just
clothiers and...
every time, yeah, because basically
And Boimler calls it out, like, clothing shop, hairstylist, or hair
Barber.
salon, or whatever. It's like, barber, yeah. That
yep.
was great.
My favorite part though was the Vulcans,
Yeah, Vulcan.
and then
At first,
fascinating.
when I first heard it, I thought it said focus, focus, focus. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's Vulcans. Got it. Good.
It's
Fascinating.
so funny every time.
Yeah.
Every time. I've watched this episode about 4 times now, and every time that part just makes me giggle.
Yes. The pauses in it is what really makes it work, too. Just like there's like zip through, quiet, zip through, quiet. And I'm just like, fascinating.
Yeah, I want to know what hairstyle the Klingon lady in the barber shop was getting.
Yes.
Just joy. These little
Yeah.
things.
No, it's just so many little. Yeah, it's just and one of the people that they pass is it's a Captain Pike chair that's going super slow, and she's very upset. She's honking, and when you go by it, it's Alex Kurtzman.
Yep. Yes, it is.
Why he's in a Pike chair, I don't know, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah, because
Actually, apparently, in all of this, in the Starfleet party, and there are a lot of people from Titmouse who've been drawn in there. So
That makes
basically,
sense.
if you've both Mike and Brad and a couple other people are in there. So yeah, I think it's kind of funny.
it is funny because it's like, oh look, he's been fired again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was great.
That was
So yeah,
just
so they
funny.
and they end up going through the aviary, the very end of the sort of which is where we get a conversation that you and I have had before.
Yes.
They go into the aviary and you see what is credited as Aurelians. Now those are bird creatures from the animated series, and they were in yesteryear. But there's another bird species that was in the Jihad that's called the Skorr. And there's a different, you can tell the difference between the two of them. And this is not me just like making it up. I heard this from the people who designed it, and you can look at it and you can see it. The Aurelians have much skinnier necks, kind of like chicken necks almost.
Very much chicken necks.
Yeah. They have a slighter build, and they have what we called groin plumage.
Good old groin plumage.
Yes. So basically they have kind of starting around their hips and then going down to that area, just like poofy feathers. Mm-hmm. These do not have that.
Nope.
Which means they are the Skorr, because the Skorr are actually much buffer, and they have much thicker necks. So basically, it's the conversation that back and forth that I had between like Brad, I can't remember his last name, which is horrible, from Titmouse, Mike McMahon, and another Jorg, a person who also finds Easter eggs like I do, back and forth about what they. So what we've landed on is that yes, it was supposed to be Aurelians, but they look like Skorrs, possibly because much like Vulcans and Romulans, in the past they were one species, and since the events of Jihad, they have come back together as a species. This is obviously not canon. But now if you go to Memory Alpha, my tweet about the differences between them is referenced as just like, okay. I mean, yes, it's information that's not in the book, but it is from that thing. So yeah. So your coinage of growing plumage is now encased in what is the word I'm looking for? Enshrined in memory. Yeah, immortalized in Memory Alpha.
I'm so proud right now.
That's hilarious.
Oh my goodness. I didn't actually know they changed it yet, so I didn't know they put groin plumage in.
I don't know how long it will stay there, because that is also basically, it's a Wikipedia, so it's not it's not like CBS did it, but the fact that they don't put anything in unless they're like 100%, 1,000%. I mean, there are things that they literally put down. It was earlier in last year sometime. Remember, there were aliens, but I can't remember who they were, but they misspelled the subtitle.
I think it was Denobulan.
Yes, and they put them down as a separate race.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, no, that's not what they. So, and then eventually fixed that, but it's like, no, but that's what it said on screen. I'm like, that's like saying Orions are not Orions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. I knew immediately. Well, and the thing is that they used the word Denobulan again in that episode and spelled it right the second time. Mm-hmm. So why they didn't go back and fix the first one, I couldn't say. But
and at least it's not the audio book where they call it Denobulans over and over again. I want to yell at Robert Petkoff every time he mispronounces. It's like, it's not Denobulans.
Oh, that's so bad. That's so bad.
Yeah, there's a couple words that are just like, can't you just give him a clip of the show where people pronounce the words?
Yeah.
So
it's not that hard. I mean, you have plenty of references for how to say Denobulan.
Yeah.
Plenty.
So basically, they crash through the aviary. And you've got this couple. It's like, move to the aviary. You said it'll be quiet. You said their whole house falls down, and they're really cool though. I actually like the sort of like globe, kind of treehouse kind of things. Like that would be really neat to have as an Airbnb sort of a thing. Where it's like I'd stay in one of those.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like a full nest. You know how birds build very circular nests a lot of the time. Well, this is just one with a top on it and a door.
Yeah, well, it's very cool.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And then they end up crashing into the water, and all the bubble baths pop up. So it's kind of like Data in, what was it, Insurrection? Where he's like, I'm also a flotation device.
Yes, I can also be used as a flotation device.
That's what it reminded me of.
Yep. Yeah. The one weird thing about that scene is the guy who's raking
The old
stuff
guy.
up. And the thing
Not
is,
Boothby.
I know, and I misunderstood exactly the context of it when I saw it the first couple of times. And the last couple of times I watched it, because he's just like, oh, this is how I'm going to die. And then it jumps over and lands, the car jumps over and lands in the lake. And he's like, oh, still alive. I'm like, oh, he was talking about how, oh no, he's still alive, not, oh
Yes.
no, they're still alive.
That's hilarious.
And I think a lot of people thought he was saying, oh no, they're still alive. How boring.
Oh,
No,
they're
he was
still- oh,
saying that
shoot.
about himself.
Those stupid young kids are still alive.
No, it was him. He was just
That's
like,
great.
oh,
Yeah.
I am at peace with death. Oh no, it didn't work.
I'm still here.
Damn.
Oh, that is so funny. Yeah, so they are alive still, and this is where Boimler's like, we should have brought the scants because they are now just a big mess. And so she calls Malvis and just says, like, look, it's like at this point, because he already knew that they were. Did we even mention this? That they were smuggling Klingon disruptors underneath which is why the security was chasing them, and. So basically, it's like, oh, you're still alive. Thank the gods that I worship. Just like, so I was like, well, if you don't tell us where that party is, I'm going to report you. It's like, well, then you'd be in trouble too. It's like, yeah, and we'd both be in jail together in the same jail cell. And she holds the bubble bath and the head pops off.
Yeah.
And
She
she's like, oh,
squeezes
ballroom A. Yeah.
Just squeeze. Oh, ballroom air. That's where all the big events are.
And I told Mike McMahon, this is where there was a missed opportunity. It should have been Hall H or Ballroom H or something like that from because he agreed, except for the fact that if you don't go to Comic-Con, then you won't get the joke. So having just be the generic Ballroom A,
I have never been to Comic-Con. I've never been to San Diego Comic-Con, but I know Hall H. I know Hall H. That's where all the biggest panels happen.
That's why I thought this would have been the perfect place for the big party. But yeah. I thought it would have been funny.
It would have been hilarious.
And I know that certain people definitely would get that. So they head off to the party and are greeted with the same bouncer that we've seen with the other people. And Boimler gets in, no problem, but Beckett doesn't.
Yeah.
And
she's not happy.
This is where... No, and this was kind of continuing the conversation they were having while they were driving of abandonment. She, has been waiting for him to apologize for just leaving in the middle of her shift to go off to the Titan. She's happy for him, but not the way he left, which is kind of a dick move, honestly.
It is. It is. It's very Mariner. It's very Mariner. And he was right when he's like, yeah, I earned that promotion and I deserve to be aboard the Titan. And of course you have to make it all about you.
Yeah.
That was fair. He was right about that.
Yeah. And I think that's why he left it, not making a big deal out of it, because by the time he left, it would have been about her, not about him.
Exactly.
So I think it was just easier to okay, I'm just clean break going.
Yeah. And she, of course, didn't
So-
consider that for a second.
No.
It was all
I don't
about
think she
her.
still considered it even when she was standing there and
Yeah.
after he walked in. I think she still was just like, ugh. I don't think she reconsidered that until much later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we get
But-
to see that a little bit.
So, yes. So he goes into the party, which is fun because we get to see the inside, and you have Shelby. We get to see Captain Shelby for the first time since Best of Both Worlds. Is that what it was? I think so.
Yep.
And the her first officer, which you may recognize.
I did.
As did you? Okay. The prototype for Saru. Basically, the original look of him was kind of this triangle-shaped head with many, many eyes. And that's why, because I had seen that, I don't know, a good chunk of time before Discovery's first trailer ever aired. So when they had the first trailer, I'm like, oh, it must be Saru. I'm like, no, that's not Saru. Because I had known it as the thing with the multiple eyes. And it's just like, wait, what happened? Why is this? And I think they made a good call. It was like having that as a live action like you don't know where to focus, and it's just.
Well, not only that, but if they wanted it to look realistic, they would have to animate all of those eyes.
Yeah.
And that is
would
a
just be a
pain in the
nightmare.
butt that they did not need.
Yeah.
They did not have the time or the budget to do that. So I fully
Works
support.
so much better as a cartoon.
Yeah, it works great as a cartoon, but as live action, you either have to have a lot of animatronics going on there, or you have to digitally do it. Either way, not worth it. Just what we have is fine. What we have is what we have, and we love it. We want it that way.
Well, yeah, you also lose the expression of just the two eyes, and you've much like taking Jordy's LeVar Burton's eyes away with the visor. You kind of do the same thing to him, and his facial shape is different in that mask too. So you didn't get a lot of the feeling of what he's going through just by his facial features either.
Yeah, and he's so expressive.
Yes.
That it would have been such a shame to lose that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they went with the design that we actually have, because it's hard enough for them to do that. So.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So from there, we cut to a dive bar that we have Mariner's just sitting there drinking and asks for another drink, and the bartender lady, who I love, I want to see her in something.
Yes.
She's like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Oh, I'm not really. I'm not going for good idea. I'm going for bad idea or whatever she said. So yes, more alcohol. And the bar is very cool, and we can talk about this when we're with the end. It is just plastered with photos and paintings and memorabilia, basically, of everybody who's been through the Starbase. So, of course, that means it's all Easter eggs from Star Trek. So, very cool.
Yes, and I love when Boimler walks in and says, "Put it on my tab and get me a prune spritzer." And I'm like, "A prune spritzer?
Yeah.
Why?" But
prune juice. I'm thinking Worf, maybe.
Yeah, well,
that was the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I get that. But do people actually drink prune juice because they like it? Only Worf, I think. Only Worf. Because
maybe our taste buds have changed by the 24th century.
I guess, because I don't enjoy drinking prune juice. It's I enjoy eating prunes, but I don't enjoy drinking prune juice. So that was one of those things. And just I know it's a cartoon, but just the expression on Boimler's face when he comes in and sits down, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, he's learned what he's missing, and I like that he says, I didn't tell you because I was afraid that you would talk me out of it. Mm-hmm. And she would have.
Which she probably would have.
She absolutely would have. So just
and not for his good necessarily.
No,
either.
because it was
Probably
about
not
her.
at all.
It was about her.
Yeah.
It was about her.
Yeah.
And she has realized that. She's finally realizing that. And just they have this chat, and then they're talking. The bartender, of course, is brilliant during this whole thing, and she's talking about, oh yeah, well, look down there on the bar. Those two didn't get into that fancy party either.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see Kirk.
You think you're the first two that ever struck out and ended up back here? So when we look down, we see Kirk plus Spock scrawled into the bar. Yeah,
definitely carved in there. Definitely carved, yeah. And I'm like, okay, first of all, where did they get the knife? Second of all...
It's Kirk,
probably he just carried a pocket knife around. Who knows? But but my heart would... I mean, I knew that was coming, but at the same time, like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh. And, yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it's like a love thing, but it's just like people who want to take it as a spurk, a slash fiction Spock Kirk can see that.
Yeah.
People who want to see friendship can see that. So I like that it's non-committal.
Yeah, it is non-committal. See, the thing is I'm more of a Spike girl. So Spock plus Pike.
Oh, I'm like I've missed something.
Spike girl, yeah. I'm a Spike girl. But anyway, I ship them harder than I ship Kirk and Spock, but then I was never the biggest Kirk fan.
I'm more of a Bach, I guess. Bones and Kirk. No, that's not right. I don't know. That has one, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Especially in the Kelvin universe.
I'm sure there it's everywhere. There's all kinds of pairings everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And in fact, my office assistant, her name is Chris. She's also my friend. Lower Decks is her first trek, and she adores it. And I explained to her a couple of weeks ago, hey, guess what? You like a Star Trek series. You know what that makes you? A Trekkie. Told you I was going to make you a Trekkie. And I did. She was actually so moved by the end of this episode when, you find they're there and they start drinking together and... he says...
Well, this is where the other, the mom, everybody shows up.
Everybody
so
else shows up.
All the favorite people, this is where the party is because all the people that I love are in this room, basically.
Yep. So
the people I care about.
They all party together, and at the very end, you see another set of names scratched into the bar with Boimler and Mariner. And
I noticed it's Mariner first. It's Mariner, Boimler, like Kirk and Spock. So it's sort of
course,
like I took that as like, okay, that is done on purpose for sure.
Oh yeah,
she's the dominant, personality, and that was the whole joke. It's like, oh, you're my number one, because and he does something to the fact where he basically acknowledges it, and they're like, no. It's like, I take that back, and her Captain Freeman's like, no, I saw it.
I heard it. Sorry.
Yeah. Like, now you have to grow a beard.
Oh, it just leaves me feeling so good and so warm and fuzzy. Yeah. And then I've got my friend Chris, who has not the history of knowledge that I do, and she was so moved by seeing all those names together that she's just like, I just love that. I cried at that. I'm like, you did? That's amazing.
I think the people who don't give the show a chance have no idea what they're missing by the fact that this, in a 22-minute episode, there's like so much emotion, and more than every other Star Trek has had up to this point, it feels like. I know that everybody loves Discovery as far for emotion. Like, there's a lot of that, but it's just like, I still feel something more with Lower Decks than I do with Discovery.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing.
Everybody's different, obviously.
Everybody has their thing. Everybody has their thing. I just cry at everything. Yeah. So I can't say that one.
I can't use you as a marker.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, you absolutely can't, because I've cried at everything. I've cried at all the new series. I've cried for Discovery. I've cried for Picard. I've cried
long
for
distance commercials.
No. But see, that's my thing. Is that
that was an '80s thing anyway?
My thing is that crying is the ultimate or final expression of all of my emotions. It's not just for when I'm particularly moved or sad or something tragic has happened or something like that. Yeah. I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm angry. I cry when I'm scared. I cry when I'm tired. I cry when I'm hungry. I just, they're just...
I think hungry is an emotion, but okay.
It is for me, Aaron. Okay. It is for me.
Hangry. Now that's an emotion.
Yeah, I get that. I actually get hangry, and my husband can attest.
Yeah. I've had that issue too. So that's where we wrap up, I really, really loved it. And real quick, do you want to go through some of the Easter eggs that are in the bar?
Yes, please, please.
So, by the way, first, the bar is based on Mike McMahon's favorite bar in Chicago, the Old Town Ale House. And this is where improv comes in. All of the photos and stuff that much looks like the back of your wall, actually, too, in some ways, are Second City improv portraits, plus some local Chicago stuff. So I thought that was kind of fun. That it's just like, oh, okay, so it's the equivalent of the bar that we go into after our show or whatever. So we have, I'm just going to read through some of these because there's just a ton of them. We have Abaddon from Alice in Voyager. It's like how that picture ended up there, I don't know. He was, maybe he's long lived and somehow visited the Alpha Quadrant at some point. We've got Morin from DS9. What looks like Spock wearing a red visor, giving the Vulcan salute from Is There in Truth No Beauty? We've got Apollo from Who Mourns for Adonais. We have 4 instead of just 3 Telosians from The Cage. I don't know where the 4th one came from. Next surprise. The Enterprise in orbit around a red planet, which a lot of people are like, oh, it looks like that standard picture from, TOS. But for me, it also looks exactly like the animated series, just because it's drawn. So for me, it's just like it feels more like that. And speaking of, we have Eric's and Maress, and we also have a Edosian in a red uniform. So maybe Eric's changed divisions, or there was just somebody else another Edosian, which is also possible.
Yeah. Wow, that's
and there's a guy at the very end, and nobody said who it is. Maybe it's just a person from the show, but it looks like Troy's the person that she was betrothed to in Haven, the like Jonathan Miller or something, some real boring like human sounding name. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
He was an artist, and he kept drawing people or this woman that he saw in his dreams, and it turns out she was on a ship, and it was a bad episode. But it looks exactly like him. So I don't know, but that's the closest I could find, because he's in a blue uniform that sort of looks like it's TOS era science, but nobody except for Chekhov had hair that length when I went back and looked at TOS. So anyway, excuse me. And behind Beckett and Boimler is the Bajoran Lightship from DS9's Explorers, the one that Cisco and what's his son's name? Jake, thank you. Put together.
Yeah.
Flew out. We had Loki from Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Or Lokai.
I think it was Lokai.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's...
The way I wrote it down, I was like, that's not Loki.
I remember the first time I saw that episode as a child, and it hit home for me really hard, because I was probably only like 6-7 years old. But that explained racism to me in a language I could understand. Yeah. And I learned that lesson at a very young age. Not my parents never taught me that people who had different skin colors were bad. They were never like that, which is really interesting considering my mother's from Arkansas. But and there's a lot of racism in the South. So
yeah.
But I was never taught racism. So but that was enough to teach me, oh, there is such a thing as this, and that it's not a good thing. It means people die. That's basically what my little child brain interpreted. So I determined I was never going to be a racist.
That's good. And it's from Star Trek.
Yeah. Star Trek taught me a lot of life lessons.
Yeah, yeah, it really has. I mean, I'm not... Yes, it can.
Yes.
What I'm trying to say.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you were saying. Yeah.
We also have Kirk in a spacesuit in a spacesuit from the Tholian web, where he's like floating out. Yeah. We've got the gamesters of Triskelion. We've got a Horda from Devil in the Dark, which you and I have done an episode about.
Formative episode for me.
Speaking of more formative Star Trek, yeah. We've got Trelane's Castle from the Squire of Gothos. We've got Mudd's Women. Yay. Like, what is it? The Friday's Child episode, the Mab and Dur. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
I think it's something like that. We've got the Anthropod from the Galileo 7. We have the Salt Vampire from the Man Trap. We've got Baylock's Puppet from the Corbinite Maneuver. And then for models, we've got a model of the Planet Killer from the Doomsday Machine.
It's terrifying.
The Guardian of Forever behind her with all of the glasses and stuff, which I imagine is like a commemorative thing that was filled with alcohol for some reason. I don't know why.
I would think so.
And then there's a model of the Phoenix from Star Trek First Contact.
That one I saw. That one I did see. And I pointed to it and I said, Dave, there's the Phoenix. And he's like, what? And I said, is that from Cochrane's ship? Come on. He's like, who? First Contact, babe? Star Trek First Contact. You remember
First
that
what?
one?
Star what?
Well, he came into Star Trek much later than I did. So it's okay. You know, at least I sucked him in.
So that's, I mean, I'm sure there are more that I missed, but there was a ton of, this is like episode 2 where it was just like, I put so much effort into that Easter egg list of that collector's thing that I'm like, I can't do that again for this, but I did make the list. So
impressive. Yeah. And now I'm going to watch it again with all of this knowledge and find all of these things.
I'll send you the list.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So that was the Embarrassment of Dooplers.
Ah, yes. What an episode. What an episode.
I think this is a really great mid-season, like, kind of just, it tells you where all the characters are at. And it kind of feels like that, like, pause point to now let's see what happens in the last half of the season.
Indeed.
So yeah. Oh, and today, although this is chronologically out of order than how these aired originally, Fansets has released their Voyager pin.
Oh, son of a... I gotta get on there and get that. Thanks for reminding me.
Well, you know what? If you can get a discount on that badge.
Yeah.
As you're sitting, as Brandi is sitting here manually typing into the computer, Drawn, all one word, is our Drawn to Trek 10% off discount code, and that can get off the badge that Brandi is ordering right now, or you can use it for a gift card and pretty much anything on it. They have some really cool stuff that's not just Star Trek too, which I enjoy.
They do. I have gotten a lot of their DC pins because I'm trying to collect all the Dark Justice League Dark characters.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I'm waiting for them to have all of them, so that I can have my original Justice League Dark core people. So, because I'm much bigger fan of Dark than I am just regular Justice League, because I'm weird that way.
That's funny. I've been collecting the Irwin Allen stuff.
Oh, nice!
All these, like,
yeah,
1960, like the time tunnel and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and Land of the Giants, stuff like that.
Oh, so. Yeah, love that, love it.
But yeah, so that's I think that pretty much does it for the show.
It does. Oh my gosh, did we get through it all?
Brandy's like, I'm ordering fan sets.
Yeah, I have to get to Savick pin. Okay.
Yes, there are a couple new releases this week as well.
Yes. Well, see, I've been waiting.
I do not have them off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Well, one of them is Savick, I can tell you that.
Yes.
And it's the Robin Curtis Savick, which I appreciate. You can...
I want to say there's a Discovery character, or like maybe number one.
We already had that. Yeah, she came out last month. We had number one, and good grief, I have them over there, but I can't remember the other one. There's Admiral Vance. Yes, please.
Yes.
Everybody's listening to me shop now. I'm so sorry, you guys.
Well, thank you for joining me, Brandi. It was so good to see you again. And for everybody out there, we will be having Infinite Trek. It will come back. We're going to organize it where everybody who was supposed to get together will be there, along with Noah Averback-Katz, who played Rin on Discovery. And that's the main reason we're sort of... I suppose we could do a different show in the meantime, but we have kind of just been holding off until we can get him on, because we're going to talk about headcanon, which is going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Yes, it is going to be a lot of fun, I think, as well.
Well, everyone, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Don't give me that sarcastic Vulcan salute.
Don't you give me that sarcastic Vulcan salute! Coconut!